Hi, this is Sensei James Leonelli from Sensei's Weekly Mindset, and I'm here to talk to you about betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball, soccer, and esports. Don't forget my personal favorite, MMA. We've got it all on betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, we can help you find those on BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. And don't forget BetOnline for NHL, boxing, golf, and like I said, my personal favorite, the sport of MMA. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Life isn't always easy, and you don't have to face it alone. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you have access to a network of over 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of needs. To get started, you simply answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live sessions when it's most convenient for you. The best part is, if your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom-picked for you, more scheduling flexibility, and at a more affordable price, all from the comfort at home. To start your journey and to get 10% off of your first month, go to betterhelp.com/sensei. That's better, HELP.com/sensei. BetterHelp, you deserve to be happy. Hi guys, Sensei James Leonelli here to talk to you about another one of our sponsors, LMNT. An electrolyte drink mix. Each one of these little packets gives you exactly what you need to keep you as hydrated as all us athletes like to be. If you're like me, you work out a lot, and when you work out a lot, you also sweat a lot. Now, when we sweat, we don't lose just water, of course. We also sweat out salt. We sweat out electrolytes. So each one of these packets contains 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, giving you everything that you need in order to maintain optimal hydration and nothing that you don't. So to go online, place an order for your sample pack, and to get yourself a bonus free sample pack, you're going to go to this website right here, elementallabs.refr.cc/James Leonelli. You're going to see this down in the video below, but I'll say it one more time for you. elementallabs.refr.cc/James Leonelli. Again, it's a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing that you don't. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Sensei's Weekly Mindset. I'm Sensei James Leonelli, owner and head instructor of Tiger Schulman's here in Smithtown. Once again, I am back in my home recording space, ready to give you guys this week's food for thought. You can see I'm wearing a little bit more of the 40th anniversary collection from Tiger Schulman's. This is one of my favorite shirts. It's got all the old logos all over the back. It's really awesome. Every logo we've ever used is on the back of the shirt. So really cool piece of Tiger history right here. So as we are getting started here today, just a couple of housekeeping notes. As always, guys, make sure that you guys have left a rate and review. It just helps. Make sure you guys subscribe, get those new episodes every Wednesday. If you're on YouTube, make sure you click on that notification bell to make sure that you guys don't miss out on a single episode. And of course, guys, as always, please share the podcast. It is the greatest form of the greatest compliment you can give me. Other than that, guys, make sure you guys leave your comments. I'd love to see what you guys are thinking from the episodes. So, full disclosure, I am recording this episode well in advance because, unbeknownst to my children, we are going on a vacation. They have no idea. We are telling them tomorrow morning when we leave, which is going to be so awesome. I'm so excited for it. I'll tell you guys more about it when we get back. But nonetheless, By the time this is dropping, I'll be back. Nonetheless, so I'm going to make a couple assumptions here. Number one, when this is dropping, it will have been my birthday. So thank you in advance for all of the birthday wishes through social media, through those of you who reached out and texted me, whatever. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much. And of course, I believe by this point, the breast cancer awareness shirt should have come down from Natty's website. If not, take advantage, get on there. Order yourself one, because we should be approaching the very tail end of the fundraiser for the Fortunato Breast Center here on Long Island. Make sure you guys have done everything you can to help us raise money for that great cause. It was doing decently well, so I'd love to see if you guys can get out there and get us some more shirts sold and get that great cause a little bit more in terms of funds. So as we're sitting down today, just one major thought that really hit me. I was watching some TV the other day with Mrs. Sensei, and there was a commercial that popped up because, now even when we stream things, we have to have commercials. Thanks, Internet. Anyway, and it was a commercial, and it was LeBron James, and he's on the sideline of a basketball game. He's kind of like meditating. His eyes are closed. And it's a real video from a real basketball game, but his voice is laid over it. And he's talking about the expectations of being LeBron James, of being the guy that everybody knows, being now the first of a two-generation family in the NBA. And he's going on and on and on about all the pressure that's on him, all the expectations that are on him. And he goes, but expectations are a privilege. And I love that, because expectations are a privilege. They certainly are, right? And I really thought about it, because we've talked about a similar concept before, but it's very, very true. Having those around you that have expectations for you is a privilege. Right? I'm going to come in a slightly different direction for a second, but it's going to bring us kind of full circle. I've talked about it before, a book that I've read many a times, and I'll likely read it many more times. It's called The Last Lecture by a gentleman by the name of Randy Pouch. And Randy, make a very long story short, professor at Carnegie Mellon University, he diagnosed with inoperable and fatal cancer. Was nominated to do what's called the last lecture. And the concept is, if this is your last lecture on Earth, what wisdom do you leave behind for the next generation? So for him, it really was going to wind up being his last lecture. So he took the opportunity to leave behind wisdom for his 3 young children. And it was fantastic. It took the world by storm a number of years ago. It predates me and Mrs. Sensei, so it's probably got to be about 15 years ago now, maybe a little more. But nonetheless, he made the rounds through all like the morning shows and everything, dropped the lecture as a book and everything. And he gives some really amazing life lessons and advice throughout the book. And I suggest it to everybody. But one of the things he talks about is the idea of coaching. And he was talking about being coached as a kid. And, he had one particular coach, I believe it was a football coach, who was particularly hard on him, he felt. And he felt like every time he went to practice, the coach was, always finding something to ride him about a little bit, to, be on his butt about like this or that or the other thing about it. And he lamented to his father, and he goes, Dad, I don't know, like, I think Coach, whatever his name is, doesn't like me, because every single time I'm in practice, he always finds something to correct on me. He's always trying to correct me, and he's always on my butt, and he never lets me get away with making a mistake ever. And his father goes, well, what about that makes you think that he doesn't like you? And he goes, well, he's always on me about all my mistakes and this and that and the other. And his dad says to me, he goes, well, what would you prefer? Would you prefer that he just ignores you the whole practice? That he pretends you're not even there? That he never interacts with you at all? And Randy thought about it for a second, and his father said, the fact that someone cares enough to be critical of you shows you how much they actually care, right? Because the opposite of love is not hate. It's apathy. It's the person who doesn't care about you at all. That's the most damaging thing, right? That's the by far the most damaging thing. And it's funny, like, we think about this in life, how there are people that are loved ones, their family, their friends, right? Maybe they're a significant other, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, maybe even a spouse. And something happens to pull the people apart. It could be life, could be anything. And you go from having this person that was so close to you that you didn't think you could live without, and you're like, I don't even give them a thought anymore. It's always funny on the rare occasion a girl I dated years ago comes into my brain. And usually it'll be a stupid little anecdote of just some stupid story that happens. And I'm like, I remember, like, that person used to be like the most important person in my world. And now that they're nothing more than a passing anecdote in my brain. Right? I give no brain power on a daily basis to them. It's just, that thought floats to the surface and then sinks just as deeply. But to relate this back to our idea of expectations being a privilege, the fact that you do have people enough that care enough about you to have expectations is a privilege that not everyone has. And unfortunately, not many people see that expectation for what it is, for the privilege that it is, because it is a very big privilege to have that. So let's illustrate this concept a little bit, right? We'll stick with martial arts for as long as I possibly can, because obviously it's the world I know best. And I was talking to my class about it this week as I was prepping for this episode. And in doing so, I was talking to them about all the people that have expectations for them in their training. And as far as I'm concerned, there's three people that have expectations for you. Obviously, there's your instructor, there's your classmates, and of course, there's yourself. Now, there's really two of those, in my opinion, that are the biggest privilege, because I believe every human being has a certain amount of expectations for themselves. There are certain ways that you characterize yourself, right? You think of yourself as a person who does or can or what, so on and so forth. There are certain adjectives that you apply to yourself, right? Like if you're the person who's, like my student John, who was on the podcast years ago, one of my first episodes, John is the guy who's always on time. And on time for John is 22 minutes early. Like a clock, you could set it on him 22 minutes early. Always 22. Never 5, never 10, never 15, 22. Every time. Because that's how John qualifies himself. In his mind, he identifies himself. He has expectations for himself that he will be 22 minutes early. Right? And I think about so many other people that I know, and they have expectations for themselves as well. Right? Like, to think about people around you who have expectations for themselves. Like, I remember one time I was going to talk to Shion Gravina after our meeting at headquarters, and there was like a few papers on the passenger seat. Not like a ton. Like he obviously got these papers earlier in the day and they just were in the passenger seat because he hadn't been anywhere else besides wherever he got the papers and headquarters. So they were sitting there, right? And he's like, I was talking to him and he was like sheepish and embarrassed as I was talking to him, as he's like shuffling. I'm sorry. He goes, I hate people seeing my car a mess. It was legitimately less than 10 sheets of paper, and they were not all spread out all over the place. They were just like a little not super neat pile. And he was like, because that's the expectations he has for himself. He's a funny guy to talk to. Like when you talk to him, he's the guy who'll constantly straighten the papers on his desk while he talks to you because it's never quite perfect enough. And so we all have expectations for ourselves. We all have certain things that we think of ourselves as, and that's huge. That's part of our self-identity, for sure. And being able to look in the mirror and identify ourselves as people who, or as a person who, it's a privilege that not everybody, it's a privilege to be able to be confident enough to have that, right? Because there are many people in the world who are not confident enough to set expectations for themselves, right? So just being able to identify yourself as, or as somebody who is good at, that in and of itself is your first set of expectations. But then as we're part of like a martial arts community, the people who have expectations on us, that again, it finds a second and third level, right? In other sports, you have a coach, right? And it's the same is true for martial arts, where you have a coach or you have an instructor who is there to guide you through your journey. And as such, they have certain expectations for you as well, right? Like I know when my students come to class, I'm not expecting like, oh my gosh, this person's like George St. Pierre or they're Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, like they're this amazing fighter. No, I'm expecting somebody who just comes in, listens to what I have to say. In other words, if I tell them to keep their right hand up, they're keeping their right hand up. Right? If I give a little adjustment on distance, they fix up that little adjustment on distance. Right? That they come into class with their cup empty, so to speak. That they're ready. They're not thinking like, okay, these basic things that we're doing, I know them all. I've been training for 28 years and I still work my basics all the time because basics are what win everything, right? As I'm recording, the Yankees have just lost the World Series and the games were given away by basic mistakes, right? Basics win and lose. So nonetheless, those basics coming in with that cup empty is a huge part of it. And I expect effort. I expect that a person's going to be putting their very best effort into their class, listening, but more importantly, putting in the sweat equity. And then, of course, I expect them to be there when they tell me they're going to be there. And I have some students who's, just like everybody else, their life gets crazy, and they are phenomenal, I should say, about communicating with me. And they let me know, hey, Sensei, this is what's going on. This is why I can't make it tonight. Can I make it this night? And they keep to their word, even if their word has to change slightly, because it's like, okay, I can't, life has kept me out of here on, Wednesday, but I'll be there Thursday. Like, okay, that happens. Like that you're still keeping your word, just, adjusting it with the circumstances given at that moment because the circumstances have changed. So understanding that, right? Those are my basic expectations. Right? And the same holds true for the community that you've joined a part of, right? Your classmates, your training partners, they have expectations for you as well. Similarly, they expect that you're going to be there, right? Like I know sometimes, like every other human being, it's my day to train, and like every other human being, I'm having that day where I'm just not feeling it. The motivation is not there, so I'm relying on discipline. And one of the things that can be my source of motivation is thinking about my training partners there and watching them, like the people I train with on a regular basis, picturing them like, okay, who am I going to work with today? Because he's not here, right? Like picturing them in that moment, that does a lot for me. It does a lot for me because I'm like, no, I'm not letting him down. I might not do it for me today, but I'm going to do it for him today. And then I get there, and of course, everything else takes over. But nonetheless, having the expectations of those people around you is huge. And again, it doesn't just stop there, which is you simply showing up. They expect when they're there that you're going to listen, that you're going to pay attention to what's going on, that you're going to give them back the effort that they're giving you, that you guys are going to have that perfect give and take to help both people grow. Because at the end of the day, that's what a partnership is all about, making both people grow. Partnerships have to be mutually beneficial, or they're not partnerships, they're dependencies, right? Now, don't confuse what I'm saying into the fact that, oh, you've got to give me whatever your personal 100% is, all time, whatever your highest levels, you got to give me that all the time. No, you got to give me what you can give me that day, right? Because we know that what you can give on a daily basis, it isn't the same. It is not the same every day, right? Listen, we all have lives outside of our training, and there's plenty of things that can hang in our mind if we let them. And if that's the case, if we've had one of those days or one of those weeks or one of those years, and we're being so hard on ourselves to think we have to give our all-time best, or that everybody's expecting our all-time best, it's not helpful. Instead, all everybody's ever expecting is that day's best. But that's the community that we choose to be a part of. People who are going to be around us and are going to help us find the best version of ourselves. Because the best version of ourselves does push at whatever that day's best is. And again, that doesn't mean it's our all-time best. Like I said, just that day's best. Now, as I continue down this thought process here, just understand where I'm coming from. What a privilege it is to have people expect things of you, right? Like, I remember being in school, and being in school, I know that standards are as uniform as they can be, but one of the most powerful things a teacher or coach can say to you is, I know what you're capable of, and this isn't it. And that just punches in the soul. That's just hard, right? It's a lot different than like, when a coach is like, hey, I see you're not your normal self. Like, what's up? But when they're like, you're not working up to your capabilities, you're not working up to your potential, then you're like, oh, right? That's right up there. Like when your parents say, I'm not even mad, I'm just disappointed. That is on that level, right? But again, to kind of start rounding out the thought for the class, for the podcast, I should say, it's having those expectations from all those people around us. It's that community all around us that is the privilege, right? Take a step into the gym world for a moment, right? When someone's in the gym, right, typically We know January, it's coming. Gyms are going to blow up, get super popular. And we know by February, like 70% of those people will have failed and have stopped going to the gym. And then by the end of February, of that remaining 30, another 70% is gone. And by the end of the year, a very small percentage is still training. All right. I digress. But the question becomes, why? Why? Because they try to do it all alone. Right? And the only person that has any expectations for them is themselves, which is the start. Don't get me wrong. That's the start. But then immersing yourself in a community and having people around you who you are privileged enough to have expectations, coming from you, that's something not everybody has. That's something that makes the martial arts journey one that people stick with for much, much, much longer, because they have that community around them, right? And the way that every community interacts might be different, right? Like I've been to some schools to traveling where the environment is a little more, well, let's say chop busty and negative. Others are more positive and uplifting. Others are somewhere in the middle. But either way, like I love to see a school that is, a real true community. And that community is the thing, in my opinion, that helps carry that person to success, even on the days when their self-discipline is lacking a little bit, or their motivation especially is lacking a little bit. They have those around them to push them to that next level, to find out what they are truly capable of. That's the real privilege, right? That you have people around you who think enough of you to expect a lot of you, because you can't expect something of people if you don't think something of them, right? Like I've heard one of the comedians I listen to frequently. He says disappointers never disappoint. In other words, the people who disappoint you on a regular basis, they never disappoint you in the fact that they're going to disappoint you. You know the disappointment is coming, right? That's who they are as a person. Disappointers never disappoint. They right? Or rather, they will continue. They never disappoint in their ability to disappoint you. You know disappointment's coming some way or another, which is sad, but it's true, right? And people adjust their expectations based on that, right? Like when you have that friend who's late all the time, you adjust your expectations of that person based on lateness, based on who they are, right? Like I always bust my neighbor's chops because he works in the agricultural field. He's an arborist, and he's always up at the crack of dawn, which means he goes to bed reasonably early. So I always bust his chops about, oh, you go to bed when the street lights are on. So, but I've adjusted my expectations for him. Like there are neighbors on the block that I'm friends with that I know if I text them at 9:30, I'll get an answer. But I know if I text Bill past like 8, it's just not happening. And that's fine because now I know who Bill is and I can adjust accordingly, right? But again, it's all about having that person who cares enough to have expectations, right? And the beautiful thing about expectations is you set the parameters of those expectations by what you've done consistently, right? Like to kind of start closing out the show today, simple idea. As you guys know, I've been doing commentary for Flex Fights for almost 2 years now. No, more than 2 years, geez. Almost 3 years, pardon me. Almost 3 years we're coming up on. And I am notorious for my preparation. I remember one of the former fighters from originally Flex was Triton. This gentleman fought for Triton, fought his way through a bit of a professional career onto Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, and eventually into the UFC. And Charlie was going to be doing commentary for us. And the broadcast is starting, and he and I are chatting on air, and he talks about, oh, I've heard about the James notes. Let's see those James notes. And sure enough, he goes, wow, those notes lived up to the hype, right? But that's because that's the expectation that I have set for myself. But now that expectation is threefold, right? The audience who listens regularly expects me to be prepared like that. Right? All of the Flex Fight staff, they expect me to be prepared like that. But more importantly, I expect myself to be prepared like that. And all three of those work in tandem to make sure that I live up to those expectations. And as such, get better and better and better at commentary as time goes along, in my opinion. And from what I'm told. But nonetheless, such an important thing, the expectations, and that we don't recognize them the wrong way. Right? Sometimes we take criticism can only come from a place of having expectations, as long as it's positive, of course, right? There are some people who hate just to hate, we know that, right? But the criticism we know that hurts the most is from the people that you respect, because you know that criticism comes from a place of expectations. And the fact that they care enough about you to have expectations, that's a privilege, and we should never lose sight of it. So that's all I have for you guys today. As always, you can reach me via email, senseileonelli@gmail.com. Twitter and Instagram, I'm at sensei_Leonelli. You can find me on Facebook, I'm Sensei James Leonelli. You can find my school online, tsmasmithtown.com. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/TigerSchulmanSmithtown. Twitter, Instagram is at tsmma_Smithtown. You can find everywhere that I'm on the internet at my linktree, linktr.ee/Sensei Leonelli. I have not taken the Natty Breast Cancer shirt out of my linktree, so if you want to try one more time there, by all means, go to my Linktree, try there for the breast cancer shirt. Also, there you can find everything Flex Fights, Tiger Schulman's, you name it, it's all right there. Speaking of Tiger Schulman's, find out more about the Tiger Schulman's organization as a whole at tsk.com. The podcast is on Instagram at Sensei's Weekly Mindset. Make sure that you guys, like I said, leave a rate and review, just helps. Make sure you guys subscribe, get your new episodes every Wednesday. Most importantly, though, guys, please share the podcast. It is the only form of advertising that I have. Other than that, my friends, until next time, invest in yourselves. I'll see you guys on the mat.